The Force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of destiny and choice. But what happens when a single decision, one seemingly insignificant assignment, unravels the threads of fate itself? The Jedi Council chamber on Coruscant hummed with ancient power as 12 masters deliberated the galaxy's troubles, unaware that their next words would reshape everything. Master Kagan Jinn. Mace Windu's voice carried the weight of authority as he addressed the tall Jedi standing before the council. Disturbing reports from the Balteaser system we have received. Sith artifacts, smugglers claim to have discovered. Investigate this. You and your Padawan will. Kagan bowed, his long hair falling forward. Beside him, Obi-Wan Kenobi, 25 years old and eager to prove himself, mirrored the gesture. We will leave immediately, Master Windu. Concerned about Naboo, are you not? Yoda's ears twitched as he studied Qui-Gon's face. The ancient Jedi Master saw much, but even he could not see the future that was already dying in that moment. The Trade Federation's blockade is troubling, Kagan admitted. But if Sith artifacts have truly surfaced after 1,000 years? Precisely, Mace interrupted. Masters Tyen and Kohler will handle the Naboo situation. A simple trade dispute, Chancellor Valorum believes it to be. Your talents are better suited to investigating the darker threat. The decision was made. The path was set. And in that instant, the galaxy's future shifted like sand in a Tatooine windstorm. As Kagan and Obi-Wan departed for Balteaser aboard a Republic cruiser, neither felt the disturbance in the Force, the subtle wrongness of a destiny unfulfilled. Kagan meditated in his quarters, his thoughts on ancient Sith and the dark side's mysteries. He did not see the vision of a young boy with blonde hair and eyes full of stars. He did not hear the whisper of a name, Anakin. On Naboo, the Trade Federation's droid armies marched through Theed's elegant streets unopposed. C.C. Tyen and Aegon Kohler had indeed been sent, but their ship never reached the blockade. Sabotaged in orbit, it exploded in a brilliant flash, leaving no survivors. Darth Sidious had ensured no Jedi would interfere with his carefully orchestrated invasion. Queen Amidala stood in her throne room as battle droids surrounded her. At 14, she wore the white face paint of Naboo royalty with practiced dignity, but her hands trembled beneath her elaborate sleeves. Her handmaidens pressed close, Sabe, Urti, Rabe, their young faces masks of fear. You will sign the treaty? Your Highness. Newt Gunray's hologram flickered before her, his Neimoidian accent dripping with false courtesy. Or your people will suffer for your stubbornness. I will never legitimize this invasion, Padme said, her voice steady despite the terror clawing at her chest. The hologram smiled. Then you are a prisoner. Take her to Camp 4. As the droids seized her, Padme caught her decoy Sabe's eye. A silent understanding passed between them. This was not over. Naboo would resist. But without the Jedi who should have come, without the intervention fate had intended, the resistance would be bloodier, longer, and far more costly. In the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, Master Yoda paused in his meditation. Something felt wrong. A presence he should have felt. A brilliant light in the Force remained hidden in shadow. He reached out, searching, but found only the usual cacophony of the galaxy's living beings. Nothing extraordinary, nothing to suggest that the Chosen One, prophesied to bring balance to the Force, was at that moment tightening a bolt on a protocol droid in a Mos Espa junk shop, his potential burning like an unnoticed sun, far across the galaxy on Tatooine. Anakin Skywalker wiped sweat from his forehead and grinned at C-3PO. Almost done. 3PO. Mom's going to love having help around the house. Oh, Master Oni, I do hope I'm properly assembled. I should hate to malfunction at an inopportune moment. Shmi Skywalker watched her son work, love and worry warring in her heart. He was special. She'd always known it. The way he could predict things before they happened. The way machines seemed to respond to his touch. But here on Tatooine, special just meant dangerous. Watto would never let him go, and the Hutts would kill anyone who tried to take him by force. She didn't know that a Jedi Master and his Padawan should have been there by now. She didn't know her son's freedom had been scheduled by the Force itself, only to be canceled by a council's unknowing choice. On Balteaser, Kagan and Obi-Wan stepped off their transport into a world of perpetual twilight. The planet's dense atmosphere filtered its sun into shades of purple and gray. The spaceport of Alzur City buzzed with the usual collection of smugglers, bounty hunters, and merchants of questionable legality. I sense darkness here, Obi-Wan said quietly, his hand resting near his lightsaber. But it feels old, dormant. All the more reason to investigate thoroughly, Kagan replied. If Sith artifacts have been disturbed, we must ensure they don't fall into the wrong hands. They moved through the crowded streets. Two Jedi on a mission that seemed important but was, in the grand design of the Force, utterly wrong. With every step they took away from where they should have been, the galaxy's future darkened. And in the shadows of Coruscant, Darth Sidious smiled. The Jedi had taken the bait. The artifacts on Baltezer were real. Enough, ancient. Trinkets he'd arranged to be discovered. Through careful manipulation. Two Jedi Masters dead in a convenient accident. Two more sent on a fool's errand. Naboo was his, and with it, the sympathy vote that would make him Supreme Chancellor. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. Almost. If you want to see more alternate Star Wars timelines that change the galaxy's fate, hit that subscribe button and drop your ideas for other pivotal moments that could have gone differently in the comments below. May the Force be with you. 3 weeks after the invasion, Naboo had become a prison world. The Trade Federation's occupation tightened, like a noose around the peaceful planet's throat, transforming its green hills and shining cities into monuments of oppression. Battle droids patrolled every street, their mechanical voices, demanding identification from citizens who had never known such cruelty. In the swamps, the Gungans retreated deeper into their sacred places, their city of Otto Gunga sealed to outsiders. Queen Amidala sat in her cell in Camp 4, a detention facility hastily constructed in the Lake Country. The irony wasn't lost on her. She could see her family's lake house in the distance, now occupied by Neimoidian officers. Her handmaidens had been separated from her, scattered to different camps to prevent coordination. She was alone, dressed in a simple gray prison uniform that couldn't hide her dignity. But Padme Amidala had not survived the political arena of Naboo by being passive. Every day, she memorized guard rotations. Every meal, she observed the camp's layout through her small window. And every night, she reached out through secret channels her captors didn't know existed. Captain Panica and his security forces had escaped the initial occupation, fleeing into the hill country with a handful of pilots and loyal soldiers. They'd managed to smuggle a miniature comlink to Padme through a sympathetic guard, a young man from Theed who couldn't stomach what his planet had become. Your Majesty, Panica's voice crackled through the tiny device hidden in her mattress. We've made contact with the Gungans. Boss Nass refuses to help. He says this is the Naboo's problem. Padme closed her eyes, fighting despair. Without Jedi intervention, without the shared battle that had united human and Gungan in the timeline that should have been, the ancient prejudices between their peoples remained intact. Keep trying, Captain. Appeal to Representative Binks if you can find him. He's more sympathetic to our cause. Binks. Panica's skepticism bled through the static. That clumsy. He has a good heart, Padme insisted. We need every ally we can find. On Coruscant, Senator Palpatine stood before the Galactic Senate, his face a mask of controlled grief. His black robes seemed to absorb the light of the massive chamber, making him appear as a void in the center of the galaxy's government. Naboo suffers, he said, his voice carrying to thousands of Senate pods floating in the amphitheater. For 3 weeks, my people have endured occupation while this august body debates procedure. Chancellor Valorum promises action, but where is it? Where is the Republic's protection? Valorum sat in the Chancellor's pod, his face haggard. The Jedi deaths had shaken him. The loss of Masters Tyen and Kohler, Sr. Council members, too. What appeared to be a mechanical failure had sparked investigations and finger-pointing. Some senators whispered sabotage. Others blamed poor maintenance. The confusion paralyzed the government at the worst possible moment. Senator Palpatine, please, Valorum began. The investigation into the Jedi transport's destruction is ongoing. We cannot rush to. My people cannot eat investigations. Palpatine's controlled demeanor cracked, revealing what appeared to be genuine anguish. They cannot breathe bureaucracy. Every day, The Trade Federation strengthens its grip. Every day, more Naboo citizens disappear into detention camps. And every day, this Senate does nothing. The chamber erupted in argument. Some senators supported immediate military intervention. Others, particularly those in the Trade Federation's pocket, called for peaceful negotiation. The Techno-Union representative proposed mediation. The Commerce Guild suggested economic sanctions in 6 to 8 months. Palpatine listened to it all, his face settling back into sorrowful resignation. Perfect. The chaos served him well. But there was a problem gnawing at the edges of his perfect plan. He had expected to be Chancellor by now. In the original timeline, the one the Force had woven before the Jedi Council's choice unraveled. Padme would have escaped, reached Coruscant, and testified before the Senate. Her youth, her eloquence, her presence would have galvanized support. The vote of no confidence in Valorum would have been swift and decisive. But Padme was in a cell on Naboo, and without her testimony, without her emotional appeal, the Senate remained deadlocked. Palpatine's carefully constructed sympathy narrative lacked its key witness. He would need to improvise. The thought didn't trouble him. Darth Sidious had contingencies for his contingencies, but it did require adjustments. On Balteazer, Qui-Gon Jinn stood before an ancient Sith holocron in a smuggler's vault. The artifact pulsed with dark side energy, its crimson light casting dancing shadows across the stone walls. Obi-Wan stood beside him, lightsaber drawn but not ignited, his senses alert for danger. "It's authentic," Qui-Gon said quietly. "Fourth millennium before the Republic. The era of the Great Hyperspace War." The holocron's gatekeeper materialized, a flickering image of a long-dead Sith Lord whose name had been lost to history. Its eyes fixed on Qui-Gon with predatory interest. "Jedi," the gatekeeper hissed, "you seek knowledge of the dark side? We seek to understand why this artifact has surfaced now," Qui-Gon replied calmly. "Who discovered it, and what they intended to do with it?" The gatekeeper laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "The better question, Jedi, is what you failed to do while chasing shadows. The galaxy turns, and you are not where you should be. The boy calls to you across the stars, but you do not hear. The chosen one remains in chains." Obi-Wan stepped forward. "What boy? What do you mean?" But the holocron's light flickered and died. The gatekeeper vanished, leaving only silence and the unsettling sensation that they were standing in the wrong place at the wrong time. Qui-Gon stared at the darkened artifact, his mind racing. The chosen one. He'd studied the prophecy, of course. Every Jedi knew of it. A being who would bring balance to the Force, born of no father, with the power to reshape the galaxy. But prophecies were notoriously vague, often misleading. "Master, do you think?" "I don't know, Obi-Wan," Qui-Gon interrupted gently. "But I feel something, as if we're moving through a dream, performing actions that don't quite matter." "The dark side plays tricks," Obi-Wan suggested. But his voice lacked conviction. They secured the holocron and returned to their ship, neither mentioning the growing certainty that something fundamental was wrong. Neither could explain why Qui-Gon kept having flashes of a desert world, a boy's laughter, and the overwhelming sensation of potential left unfulfilled. On Tatooine, Anakin Skywalker raced through Beggar's Canyon on his pod racer, the twin suns burning overhead. At 9 years old, he was the best pilot in Mos Espa, perhaps on the entire planet. Sebulba had challenged him to another race, and Anakin had accepted despite his mother's protests. The canyon walls blurred past at terrifying speed. Anakin's hands moved with preternatural precision, adjusting thrust and angle without conscious thought. He could feel the race, predict every turn before he reached it. It was like the whole universe was helping him win. He didn't know this gift had a name. The Force. He didn't know he was the most powerful, Force-sensitive being born in a millennium. He didn't know that in another timeline, he would already be free, already training to become a Jedi Knight, already stepping onto a path that would make him the most important person in galactic history. He only knew he was a slave, and winning this race meant enough money to buy his mother new shoes. The finish line approached. Anakin pushed his engines to maximum, feeling them strain against the limits of their design. In his mind's eye, he saw himself crossing first, saw Sebulba's rage, saw Watto's greedy satisfaction at the winnings. He won by 3 seconds. 6 months passed, and the galaxy settled into a new, darker equilibrium. Naboo remained under Trade Federation occupation. Its people ground down by daily oppression, but not yet broken. The Senate argued in endless circles, Valorum clinging desperately to power while Palpatine's faction grew stronger with each failed vote. And across the Outer Rim, a 9-year-old slave grew older without knowing his destiny. Qui-Gon Jinn returned to the Jedi Temple with the Sith holocron and a troubled mind. The Council had commended him and Obi-Wan for their work on Balteazer. They'd uncovered an entire smuggling ring, dealing in dark side artifacts, tracing the network back to Hutt space and disrupting operations that might have armed Force-sensitive criminals across the galaxy. Important work, necessary work, but it felt hollow. Concerned, you still are, Yoda observed during their debriefing. The ancient master's eyes studied Qui-Gon with centuries of accumulated wisdom. The holocron's words, forget them you cannot. The gatekeeper spoke of a chosen one in chains, Qui-Gon said carefully. It claimed I was not where I should be. Master Yoda, I cannot shake the feeling that we missed something crucial. Mace Windu leaned forward in his council seat. The dark side seeks to confuse and mislead. You said yourself the holocron's gatekeeper was trying to manipulate you. Yes, but what if there was truth in the manipulation? Qui-Gon's voice carried an edge of frustration rare for the typically serene Jedi Master. What if the chosen one is out there, and we're blind to their presence? Search your feelings, Qui-Gon, Yoda said softly. Where do they lead you? Qui-Gon closed his eyes, reaching out through the Force. Images flickered behind his eyelids, sand and heat, twin suns burning like accusatory eyes. A child's voice calling out in a language he didn't understand. And deeper still, a presence so bright it should have been visible from across the galaxy, hidden somehow beneath layers of obscurity and distance. The Outer Rim, he whispered, somewhere far from the Republic's light. But the Force is clouded. I cannot see clearly. The dark side grows stronger, Mace agreed grimly. It clouds everything now. Even the future is uncertain. What none of them knew was that Darth Sidious had been working tirelessly to ensure Anakin Skywalker remained hidden. Through the Trade Federation's occupation of Naboo, through carefully orchestrated chaos in the Senate, through subtle manipulation of the Force itself, the Dark Lord wove shadows around Tatooine. He couldn't allow the Jedi to find the boy. Not yet. Not until his plans had progressed further. But even Sidious couldn't account for every variable. The Force had a will of its own, and destiny did not surrender easily. On Naboo, Padme Amidala had been moved to a different facility after her third escape attempt. This camp was deeper in the swamps, surrounded by treacherous terrain that made rescue nearly impossible. The Neimoidians had grown tired of her defiance and placed her in solitary confinement, a small cell with no window, no comlink, nothing but darkness and the sound of her own breathing. But Padme had learned patience. She'd also learned that even the Trade Federation's droids had exploitable patterns. On the 47th day of her solitary confinement, the door to her cell opened unexpectedly. A Gungan stood there, his long ears twitching nervously, his orange eyes wide with fear and determination. Yusa Queen Amidala? Jar Jar Binks asked in a whisper. Padme stared at him in disbelief. Yes. Who are you? Mesa Jar Jar Binks. Mesa Tinkin Yusa needin' help, Okde? His basic was heavily accented. His grammar fractured, but his intent was clear. How did you get in here? Jar Jar's expression turned sheepish. Mesa not so good with explainin'. But Mesa friend, Captain Tarpals. Him say if Mesa want to be useful, Mesa should do something brave. So, Mesa here. It wasn't the rescue Padme had dreamed of. No Jedi Knights with lightsabers blazing. No Republic commandos storming the facility. Just a clumsy Gungan who'd somehow bypassed the security systems through a combination of luck, aquatic infiltration, and what appeared to be pure accident. But it was enough. Can you get me out of this camp? Padme asked urgently. Mesa can get Yusa to the swamps. After dat, Mesa hoping Yusa have plan. Padme smiled for the first time in months. I always have a plan. 20 minutes later, they were swimming through murky water. Jar Jar leading the way with natural grace, while Padme struggled to keep up. Battle droids fired blaster bolts that hissed into the water around them. But the swamp's thick vegetation and Jar Jar's intimate knowledge of the terrain kept them ahead of pursuit. They emerged in a hidden grotto where Captain Panica and a dozen resistance Fighters waited. The reunion was brief. Tears and embraces quickly giving way to tactical planning. Your Majesty, the situation has deteriorated, Panica reported. The Trade Federation has begun systematically looting our cities. They're taking everything of value and shipping it off-world. If we don't act soon, Naboo will be stripped bare. Then we stop waiting for the Republic to save us, Padme said, her voice hard with resolve. Captain, I need you to arrange a meeting with Boss Nass. If Jar Jar could get me out of that prison, perhaps he can also help me convince his people that we're stronger united. Jar Jar's eyes went wide. Ooh, Mesa not so sure Boss Nass gonna listen. To Mesa, he'll listen, Padme said firmly. Because you're going to tell him that the Trade Federation has begun dumping toxic waste into the planet core. It's poisoning the waters, Jar Jar. Soon it will reach the Gungan cities. What's up? Jar Jar's terror was genuine. They kill into ocean. Yes. And if your people don't help us drive them off Naboo, everyone on this planet, human and Gungan alike, will suffer. It was a gamble. Padme was betting that shared survival would overcome ancient prejudices. Without the Jedi to broker peace, without the dramatic battle that should have united their peoples, she had only truth and desperation to work with. But sometimes that was enough. On Coruscant, Obi-Wan Kenobi meditated in the room of 1,000 fountains, seeking clarity in the gentle sound of falling water. His path to knighthood had stalled. Qui-Gon's obsession with finding this supposed chosen one had distracted his master from completing Obi-Wan's training. The council had noticed, and their disappointment hung over him like a shadow. Padawan Kenobi. Obi-Wan opened his eyes to find Master Windu standing before him, his expression grave. Master Windu, the council has made a decision regarding your training. Master Qui-Gon's recent preoccupation has not gone unnoticed. We believe it may be time for you to face the trials. Obi-Wan's heart leaped, then sank. Without Master Qui-Gon's approval, your master is a great Jedi, but he has always followed his own path, sometimes to the detriment of his duty. You have learned much from him, his compassion, his willingness to see beyond rigid doctrine. But you have also learned our code, our discipline. The council believes you are ready. It should have been a moment of triumph. Instead, Obi-Wan felt only sadness. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. He was supposed to be knighted by his master's recommendation, not by the council's impatience with Qui-Gon's unorthodox behavior. I will need time to consider this, Obi-Wan said carefully. Windu nodded. The council understands. But do not take too long, Padawan. The galaxy needs Jedi Knights, especially now. The darkness grows, and we must be ready to face it. After Windu departed, Obi-Wan sat alone among the fountains, wondering what he was supposed to be ready for. The Trade Federation? The mysterious Sith that everyone feared but no one had seen? Or something else entirely? Something the Force was trying to show them, but they were too blind to see. On Tatooine, Anakin Skywalker turned 10 years old without celebration. Watto had him working double shifts to build racing droids for the upcoming Bunta Eve Classic. His mother made him a small cake from dried Jawa fruit. And C-3PO sang him a halting, mechanical birthday song. That night, Anakin dreamed of a man in brown robes with a lightsaber of blue light. The man looked at him with kindness and said, "I'm sorry. I should have been there." When Anakin woke, he couldn't remember the dream. Only the overwhelming sensation of loss, of something precious that had slipped through his fingers before he'd even known to reach for it. The Force wept, but no one heard. 1 year after the invasion, the galaxy teetered on the edge of catastrophe. What should have been a brief crisis had metastasized into something far more dangerous, a wound in the Republic's flesh that wouldn't heal, attracting predators and opportunists from every corner of civilized space. Chancellor Valorum finally fell. The vote of no confidence came not from Padme's impassioned testimony, but from a coalition of frustrated senators who'd watched their chancellor fumble the Naboo crisis for 12 months. Palpatine orchestrated the final blow with surgical precision, his public face one of reluctant duty as he accepted nomination for the chancellorship. "I promise you," he told the Senate, his voice resonant with false humility, "that I will not allow bureaucracy to paralyze us any longer. Naboo has suffered too long. The Trade Federation's illegal occupation ends now." The Senate erupted in applause. Palpatine had won, but the victory tasted wrong in his mouth. In the timeline that should have been, he would have become Chancellor within weeks of the invasion, with a grateful queen as his puppet and the Jedi none the wiser. Now it had taken a full year, the Jedi were suspicious, and Queen Amidala had become something he hadn't anticipated, a genuine threat. On Naboo, Padme stood before an assembly of humans and Gungans in the ancient ruins of Theed Palace's lower levels. The meeting itself was unprecedented, boss. Nass and his generals sitting across from Naboo's resistance leaders, their ancient prejudices set aside by necessity. The Republic finally acts, Captain Panica reported, his face gaunt from months of guerrilla warfare. A fleet is en route. Chancellor Palpatine himself commands it. Padme's eyes narrowed. Something about that felt wrong, though she couldn't articulate why. How large a fleet? 3 Star Destroyers, 24 support cruisers, and a full legion of Republic troops. More than enough to crush the Trade Federation's droid army. Wisa grateful. Boss Nass rumbled, his deep voice echoing in the underground chamber. But Wisa not forgetting who abandoned us. The Republic ignored Naboo for 1 whole year. Why Wisa trust in them now? Because we have no choice, Padme said bluntly. Our resistance has been effective, but we cannot win alone. The Trade Federation controls our cities, our spaceports, our communications. If we want to free Naboo, we need the Republic's military might. What she didn't say, what she suspected but couldn't prove, was that Palpatine's sudden intervention felt orchestrated, as if he'd waited precisely long enough for Naboo to become desperate, precisely long enough to appear as a savior rather than a politician doing his duty. There's something else, she continued. When the Republic liberates us, they'll expect gratitude. They'll expect Naboo to fall in line with Senate policies, to become a loyal voting bloc. We must be careful not to trade one occupation for another kind of control. Boss Nass studied her with newfound respect. You're smart, young queen. Maybe humans not all bomb bad after all. Jar Jar, who'd become an unlikely hero among both peoples for his role in Padme's escape, grinned widely. See? Mesa knew Wisa could be friends. The combined Naboo Gungan resistance prepared for the Republic's arrival, unaware that they were about to become pawns in a much larger game. On Coruscant, Qui-Gon Jinn stood in the council chamber, facing 12 Jedi Masters who regarded him with varying degrees of concern and disappointment. Your request is denied, Mace Windu said flatly. Master Qui-Gon, we understand your conviction about this chosen one prophecy, but we cannot authorize you to search the outer rim on such vague intuition. It's more than intuition, Qui-Gon insisted, his usual calm fraying at the edges. I've meditated on this for a year. Every time I reach out through the Force, I feel it, a presence of incredible power, hidden somewhere in the galactic frontier. The Force is trying to show us something, and we're refusing to look. The dark side clouds everything, Yoda said gently. Sure of what you feel, you cannot be. The Sith's influence grows stronger each day. What you sense may be their trap. Then send me into the trap. Qui-Gon's voice rose, startling several council members. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but masters, we are failing in our duty. The Force has a will, and we're ignoring it because we're afraid. Careful, Qui-Gon, Mace warned. Fear leads to the dark side. So does willful blindness, Qui-Gon shot back. The tension in the chamber was palpable. Finally, Yoda spoke. A compromise, perhaps. To Naboo, you will go. Aid the liberation, you and Padawan Kenobi will. And if the Force shows you more, listen, you must. But abandon your mission for dreams, you will not. It wasn't what Qui-Gon wanted, but it was something. He bowed deeply. Thank you, Master Yoda. As he left the chamber, Obi-Wan fell into step beside him. The younger man had passed his trials 3 months earlier and was now a Jedi Knight in his own right, though he'd chosen to continue accompanying Qui-Gon on missions as a partner rather than a subordinate. Master, I know you're frustrated. I'm not your master anymore, Obi-Wan. You can speak freely. Obi-Wan smiled slightly. Old habits. But Qui-Gon, I've been researching the prophecy. The texts are contradictory. Some versions say the Chosen One will destroy the Sith. Others say they'll bring balance by eliminating both Jedi and Sith. What if finding this person isn't the blessing you think it is? Qui-Gon stopped walking, turning to face his former Padawan. What if not finding them condemns the galaxy to darkness? Obi-Wan, I don't claim to understand the prophecy completely, but I know the Force is screaming at us, and we're covering our ears. Then let's hope Naboo gives us the answers you're seeking. Obi-Wan said quietly. They departed for Naboo the next morning, neither knowing that the planet they were traveling to held no answers, only more questions, and the growing certainty that they were players in a game whose rules they didn't understand. On Tatooine, Anakin Skywalker had grown into a lanky, 11-year-old with sun-bleached hair and eyes that saw too much. Watto had begun hiring him out to other mechanics, recognizing that the boy's talent with machines was worth more than his labor in the junk shop. Anakin fixed hyperdrive motivators that other mechanics declared beyond repair. He could diagnose engine problems by listening to their hum. He built devices that shouldn't work according to conventional engineering but functioned perfectly. The other slaves whispered about him, some with awe, others with fear. Children who could do impossible things attracted attention, and attention in the Outer Rim usually meant death or worse. Shmi watched her son with growing desperation. He was too valuable now. Watto would never sell him, and the Hutts had started asking questions. She'd heard rumors of Force-sensitive children being bought by mysterious strangers. Some said they became Jedi. Others claimed they vanished into slavery far worse than anything Tatooine offered. Mom, I had that dream again, Anakin said one evening as they ate their meager dinner. See, 3PO stood in the corner, now fully functional and serving as both companion and helper. What dream, Ani? The one with the man in brown robes. He keeps saying he's sorry, that he should have come for me. Anakin frowned. It's weird. In the dream, I'm not here anymore. I'm somewhere else, somewhere important. But then I wake up, and I'm still a slave. Shmi's heart broke a little more. Dreams are just dreams, Ani. But this one feels different. Like it's a memory of something. That never happened. He couldn't know he was right. The Force remembered the timeline that should have been, and it whispered those memories to the boy who'd been left behind. Anakin Skywalker was supposed to be a Jedi Padawan by now, training under Obi-Wan Kenobi, learning to control his incredible power. Instead, he was a slave on a backwater world, his potential rotting and used while the galaxy stumbled toward disaster. And in the darkness between stars, Darth Sidious felt the boy's power even through the shadows he'd woven around Tatooine. The child was too strong, too bright. Eventually, the Jedi would find him. Sidious needed to accelerate his plans. The Republic fleet arrived at Naboo like an avenging hammer. 3-star destroyers dropped out of hyperspace, their massive hulls blotting out the stars. The Trade Federation's blockade scattered. Immediately, their droid control. Ships no match for Republic military might. Chancellor Palpatine watched from the bridge of the flagship, his expression one of stern determination. Internally, he was recalculating. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He should have orchestrated a battle that made him appear strong but left the Trade Federation's leaders alive to be his puppets. Instead, the fleet commanders, eager to prove themselves, were being ruthlessly efficient. Sir, the droid armies on the surface are retreating to their landing ships, an officer reported. Should we pursue? Capture the Trade Federation leaders, Palpatine ordered. I want Viceroy Gunray and his associates alive to stand trial. It would have to be enough. A trial would give him political theater, more sympathy for Naboo, and a chance to consolidate power. Not perfect, but workable. On the surface, Padme watched the sky light up with descending Republic dropships. Victory was at hand. Naboo would be free. So why did she feel like she'd just made a terrible mistake? The liberation of Naboo was swift and decisive. Within 48 hours, the Trade Federation's droid army had been deactivated, their command ships captured, and Viceroy Gunray taken into custody along with his chief lieutenants. Republic banners flew over Thebe Palace once more, and the people emerged from hiding to celebrate their freedom with tears of joy and relief. But freedom, Padme quickly learned, came with strings attached. Chancellor Palpatine arrived on Naboo 3 days after the liberation, his shuttle touching down in Thebe's main plaza to the sound of cheering crowds. He descended the ramp with practiced humility, his dark robes billowing in the breeze, his face arranged in an expression of solemn satisfaction. Your Majesty, he greeted Padme with a bow. Naboo is free, as I promised. Padme returned the bow, acutely aware of the cameras recording every moment. Chancellor, my people owe you a debt of gratitude. Without the Republic's intervention, we might have suffered for years. You suffered for a year already. Palpatine said softly, taking her hands in his. Far too long. The delay haunts me. Chancellor Valorum's incompetence cost Naboo dearly. I only hope I can help rebuild what was lost. The words were kind, but Padme caught the underlying message. Valorum failed you. I saved you. Remember that. Over the following weeks, Palpatine's true agenda revealed itself in pieces. Republic engineers arrived to help rebuild Naboo's infrastructure at a cost that would burden the planet's economy for decades. Republic military advisors suggested establishing a permanent garrison for your protection. Republic bureaucrats began inserting themselves into Naboo's government, ostensibly to prevent future Trade Federation manipulation. Padme watched it happen with growing horror. They'd traded one occupation for another, this one wearing the mask of friendship. We cannot accept these terms, she told her advisors in a private council session. The Republic is treating us like a conquered world, not an ally they liberated. Captain Panica, promoted to Chief of Security for his leadership during the Resistance, nodded grimly. The garrison alone concerns me. Once Republic troops are stationed here permanently, removing them becomes politically impossible. And yet we cannot refuse without appearing ungrateful, Governor Bibble added. The older man looked exhausted, aged by years of occupation. The Senate views Naboo as a symbol, proof that Palpatine acts where others hesitate. If we reject his help, we make enemies of the entire Republic. It was a trap, elegant and inescapable. Padme realized with bitter clarity that Palpatine had planned this from the beginning. Let Naboo suffer long enough to become desperate, then arrive as a savior whose generosity came with invisible chains. But there was one element Palpatine hadn't counted on, the Gungan alliance. Boss Nass and his people had fought beside the Naboo resistance, had bled and died for their shared world. That bond was real, forged in combat rather than politics. We need leverage, Padme said quietly. Something that reminds the Republic that Naboo isn't helpless. Boss Nass, would your people be willing to make a formal alliance? Not as subordinates, but as equals. The massive Gungan leader considered this. The Gungans never trusted surface dwellers before. But Yusa fought with honor, Queen Amidala. Yusa risked Yusa life for Gungan waters. If Wisa make alliance, it be real one. Not fancy words for politicians. Then let's give the Republic something to think about, Padme smiled. A unified Naboo, human and Gungan, with our own defense force. We accept their help, but on our terms. It was a small victory, but it was something. Naboo would be free, truly free, if Padme had anything to say about it. Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi arrived on Naboo 2 weeks after the liberation. Too late to participate in the actual fighting, but in time to witness the political maneuvering. They'd been delayed by a separatist attack on a mid-rim convoy, another sign of the Republic's growing instability. The Chancellor seems quite pleased with himself. Obi-Wan observed as they watched. Palpatine glad-hand senators in Theed's restored throne room. Yes, Qui-Gon said distantly. His attention wasn't on the politicians, but on something else, a disturbance in the force he'd been feeling since they arrived. Obi-Wan, do you sense anything unusual here? The entire planet resonates with recent trauma. Years of suffering leave marks in the force. Obi-Wan paused, reaching out with his senses. But there's something else. A wrongness. As if events here unfolded differently than they should have. Qui-Gon turned to his former apprentice sharply. You feel it too? It's faint, like an echo of a conversation happening in the next room. I can't make out the words. Just the sense that something important was supposed to happen here and didn't. Before Qui-Gon could respond, Padme approached them. She'd aged in the years since the invasion, still young at 15, but carrying herself with the gravitas of someone who'd stared down droid armies and survived. Master Jedi, she greeted them formally. I'm told you requested an audience. Your Majesty, thank you for seeing us, Qui-Gon bowed. We wanted to ask about the early days of the invasion. The Jedi Council is investigating why Masters Tyan and Kohler's ship exploded before they could reach Naboo. We believe it may have been sabotage. Padme's expression darkened. If it was sabotage, then someone wanted to ensure no Jedi interfered with the occupation. The Trade Federation? Or someone else? That's what we're trying to determine, Obi-Wan said. Did you notice anything unusual? Any signs that the invasion was more than a simple trade dispute? Padme laughed bitterly. Master Kenobi, nothing about this was simple. The Trade Federation moved with precision that suggested careful planning. They knew exactly which facilities to seize, which leaders to imprison. And throughout the occupation, they seemed to be waiting for something that never came. Waiting for what? Kagan asked intently. I don't know, but I had the strangest feeling that we'd all been cast in a play, given roles to perform, except someone changed the script at the last moment. The three of them stood in silence, each feeling the weight of destiny unfulfilled. The Force was showing them fragments of what should have been. Younger Queen escaping to Coruscant, Jedi protecting her. A boy discovered on a desert world, but the images were fractured, incomplete. Master Jedi, Padme said quietly. I don't know what was supposed to happen here, but I know something went terribly wrong, and I fear the consequences are only beginning. She was right, though none of them knew how right. Across the galaxy, the pieces of Palpatine's grand design were still moving. But the absence of Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one, the pivot around which the entire future should have turned, had created unpredictable variables. On Tatooine, that boy felt a disturbance in the Force as he worked on a moisture vaporator. For just a moment, he could see other lives he might have lived, training with a lightsaber, piloting starfighters through space battles, standing beside a beautiful woman with kind eyes, falling into darkness and rising again in flames. Then the vision faded, leaving only confusion and a bone-deep certainty that his life was supposed to be different. Anakin Skywalker remained a slave. The chosen one remained undiscovered. And the galaxy stumbled toward a future that no prophecy had foreseen, where the balance of the Force would have to be achieved by different hands, or not at all. In the depths of Coruscant, Darth Sidious meditated on his throne, reviewing his plans. Qui-Gon Jinn was still searching, still sensing something wrong. The boy on Tatooine grew stronger every day, increasingly difficult to hide. The variables were multiplying beyond acceptable parameters. He would need to take more direct action. The Sith had waited 1,000 years for their revenge. A few more adjustments to the timeline wouldn't derail his ultimate victory. It would merely require different tactics. But in the back of his mind, for the first time in decades, Darth Sidious felt something he'd almost forgotten: uncertainty. The Force was resisting his manipulation in ways he didn't fully understand, as if reality itself was trying to correct course, pushing events back towards some predetermined pattern. The Dark Lord of the Sith had no way of knowing that he'd accidentally created something far more dangerous than any chosen one. A galaxy where destiny had been denied, where the Force's careful balance had been disrupted, and where the future was genuinely uncertain. In such a galaxy, anything could happen. Heroes could rise from unexpected places. Villains could stumble. And the grand designs of Sith Lords could unravel in ways no one, not even the Force itself, could predict. Qui-Gon Jinn stood on a balcony in Theed Palace, watching Naboo's twin moons rise over the scarred but healing landscape. Obi-Wan joined him, both Jedi lost in thought. I've been thinking about the prophecy, Obi-Wan said quietly. What if the chosen one isn't a person? What if it's a moment, a decision that tips the balance of the Force? Then we missed it, Qui-Gon said heavily. The moment passed, and we weren't there to witness it. Or, Obi-Wan countered, the moment hasn't come yet. Perhaps the Force is showing us that destiny isn't fixed, that we have agency in shaping the future, rather than simply fulfilling predetermined roles. Qui-Gon considered this, then smiled slightly. When did you become the philosopher, Obi-Wan? I learned from the best. They stood together in companionable silence. Two Jedi who'd been sent on the wrong mission at the wrong time, watching a world rebuild itself through sheer determination and unity. Neither knew that far away on Tatooine, a boy was staring at those same stars, dreaming of freedom and feeling the Force call to him in whispers no one else could hear. The galaxy had changed. The timeline had fractured. And in that fracture, new possibilities emerged, some bright with hope, others dark with terrible potential. The Force would have its balance, one way or another. But how that balance would be achieved, and at what cost, remained written in stars that no one not Jedi, not Sith, not even the Force itself, could yet read clearly. The decision to send Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi to Balteazer instead of Naboo seemed insignificant. In the moment, just another assignment from the Jedi Council, one among thousands made each year. But that single choice unraveled destiny itself, leaving the galaxy stumbling through a future that no prophecy had foreseen. Anakin Skywalker remained a slave on Tatooine, his extraordinary power burning unnoticed, while the Jedi searched blindly for the chosen one they couldn't find. Qui-Gon Jinn survived, denied the martyrdom that would have made his final wish sacred, left instead to question and search without answers. Obi-Wan Kenobi became a knight through the Council's impatience rather than his master's pride, their bond strained by obsession and frustration. Padme Amidala endured a year of occupation that hardened her from an idealistic girl into a pragmatic leader who trusted no one's promises. She forged an alliance with the Gungans through shared suffering rather than shared battle, creating something genuine but fragile. And she learned the hard lesson that saviors often become masters, that freedom isn't free, and that the Republic's help came with invisible chains. Chancellor Palpatine achieved his goal, but the path was messier, longer, and less controlled than his perfect design demanded. Variables multiplied beyond his ability to manipulate. The timeline resisted his will. For the first time in his carefully orchestrated rise to power, the Sith Lord faced genuine uncertainty, and uncertainty was the enemy of all his plans. The Force itself seemed to weep for the connection severed, the master and apprentice who never met, the prophecy unfulfilled. But perhaps, in that fracture, in that deviation from destiny, lay a different kind of hope. Perhaps the galaxy needed heroes who chose their path rather than followed prophecy. Perhaps balance could be achieved by many small choices rather than one grand sacrifice. Or perhaps the absence of the chosen one simply meant the darkness would win. The twin suns of Tatooine set on another day of slavery. The lights of Coruscant blazed with political intrigue. Naboo's wounds slowly healed. And across the galaxy, the Force held its breath, waiting to see what would happen in a universe where destiny had taken a wrong turn. Some threads, once cut, can never be rewoven. Some moments, once missed, never come again. The question wasn't whether the galaxy could survive without its prophesied savior.